After long last, welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. On today's episode, why does new music suck? And what should you be watching this summer? Answers to these questions and more next.
Oh my God, sweet. I'm gonna make sure I come in on the downbeat of the 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, Ryan.
Okay, now we're broadcasting in free time.
All right, dude, free time. All
yes,
right.
Exactly. Man.
Anyway, so go to sorry.
It's good to be back.
Good to be back. Absolutely. Yeah, this is July. Things are getting, everyone's got stuff going on.
It's a little toasty.
I may or may not have been in a tropical paradise over the last couple of weeks. So
okay, after those guys abducted you.
That's true. That was fun. I just had to fight my way out. It was good. Just
that happens like every few months.
Hitched the ride in the belly of the C-140 on the way back. Jumped. I parachuted down in the Pacific, and eventually got back here. It is what it is. It's typical vacation. It's what you do.
Every now and then you've got a DB Cooper your way.
Exactly. Just bust out of a
tropical paradise.
Just bust out of like a what do they call the exit thing of the plane at 30,000 feet. Just dive out.
Yes, the safety exit.
Yeah, exactly. That's you got to keep people on their toes.
Now you made sure to steal a briefcase full of cash when you did.
You know what though? I think you're really making a priceless memory for everyone on that plane though. At the end of the day, you're finding a way to
priceless. So it doesn't matter that you stole all their money.
Exactly, and escaped in the most terrifying way possible with a giant hole in the basic cabin at 30,000 feet, pressurized plane. What could go wrong? Nah, I didn't do any of that stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But we do have to talk about. We have a combo today. Our podcast is going to be about two different things. We'll start with one thing and then lead to the other. So I'll let Ryan explain.
Well, I think more broadly, it's a state of music conversation today, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention catching up.
Yep.
In the interim for all of our listeners, I have to report I finally found the feel-good summer movie of the year.
Okay, what's that?
Everybody needs to see it.
Okay. So we're talking about Despicable Me 4, right?
Bruh. No, you need to take the
life, dude.
No, you need to take the kids to see In a Violent Nature.
I've never heard of this. What is that?
It was so good. There's parts of it that are a little clunky, like some of the dialogue could have been written by George Lucas. It's not quite that bad, but okay.
I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, so imagine that your dad's Jason Voorhees.
Okay.
And it's Bring Your Kids to Work Day.
Okay.
It's so good.
So it's a guy who brings his kids while he's mass murdering people? Is that what it is?
Okay, so imagine you're watching, say it's like Friday the 13th, Part 6. One of the Friday the 13ths where Jason Voorhees really is the killer.
Okay.
And he gets, resurrected, right? I think in Part 6 it's a lightning bolt that
is there a
Jason
supernatural element to I never really
that's what's great about any horror movie serial killer.
Okay. Like Michael Myers, is he like supernatural? That's
the thing about Michael Myers, right? At the end of the original Halloween movie, Detective Loomis shoots him and he falls off the balcony, and then when Loomis looks over the balcony, Michael Myers is gone.
Dun dun dun! That's a spoiler. Yeah. Oh my God! Sorry, people.
Right?
If you've not seen the 1977 Halloween, 78. Sorry, guys. Spoiled it for you just now.
That's what makes Michael Myers work, right? It's about fear of the unknown, right? The way they fucked up in the new Halloween movies is you got to see his face.
Okay.
So then he just becomes a dude.
Yeah.
And that's why the Scream movies suck. Like I'm not
just a dude.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of Ghostface. He's just a dude. There's a possibility I might survive. I'm a large mammal. I'm not saying I'm a tough guy or anything, but if it's just some dude with a knife, I'm also a dude.
Yeah,
I could maybe grab something sharp as well, and then maybe I can take him down with me. I don't know, but it's just a dude, so I'm not like really frightened.
Okay,
but if it's and this is kind of a Lovecraftian theme, right? Something that, it's like cosmic horror, right?
Okay.
Stuff that's unknown that can't be understood, which means you can't do anything about it, right?
Well, I don't believe, I would argue there is no such thing as something that can't be understood. Yeah. For instance, Madonna's a successful musician. But we could find a way. We can get a team of people.
Well,
we can understand why.
Or like Jennifer Lopez being cast in new movies. That's something I can't understand. That's the fear of the unknown.
Oh, did you hear
there.
that her and Ben Affleck are getting divorced? I mean, those poor kids.
Wait, wasn't that happening last time we had a podcast?
Looking for love, you know what I mean? No, I don't think so. I think they were still together back then. I don't know. I mean, people will tune into this podcast to find out what is happening with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
Right.
That's part of what the deal was we made with the audience.
So it would be great. So I wouldn't have minded really if Jennifer Lopez had been cast in A Violent Nature
as one of the victims.
Well, that's all that there are, with the exception of the main character. So this Jason Voorhees like character gets resurrected. I won't spoil why, but there's a plot explanation.
Okay.
And then
so he dies but comes back.
Correct. Okay. Right. So it's obviously a supernatural thing.
Okay.
So he has a motive for the murdering, although the murder in and of itself is enough.
To satisfy that, it scratches that itch.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, totally. So like if you're watching Friday the 13th Part 6, you're basically following the protagonist, the campers, or the main characters, right? I don't think it's campers by then, but you're with
the teen cannon fodder. Whatever.
Yeah, so like you don't see Jason Voorhees work off camera.
Okay, you don't see all the hard work he's putting in the office.
Yeah, totally. So
seeing all those jumpers in the gym at 3 a.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Like all the training he did. Like, do you know how many crunches he did out in the woods?
He's running up a hill with like a log on his back and stuff, saying "Drago."
Well, right, because if you're gonna like tie someone up in a sleeping bag and then bash their brains against a tree, that requires a lot of physical strength,
and endurance.
Right?
People don't appreciate how hard he works.
It requires a lot of core strength.
Is it in you?
Yes. You need to drink lots of Brondo because it's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. Yeah. So in this film, it's like if you just followed right behind like from the moment he resurrects, you just are right behind the killer.
Is it like first person? Are you seeing it through the eyes of the killer, or is it like?
No, it's like from like over the shoulder perspective.
Okay, so it's like if you had like a dude who was like his shadowing him for the day.
Right, like I said, if Jason Voorhees was your dad and it was bring your kids to work day, it's like you're just it's like if there were a cameraman just right behind, like as far apart, like we're like what 4 feet away from each other.
Okay, so there's not any actual kids in the movie. It's literally just like you are the kids going to work with dad. Basically, that's what it is. The audience is the kids.
Yeah, like your perspective as the audience is right behind the killer, like over the shoulder of the killer, which makes for some really, really great, clever long shots. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he hikes through the woods and murders for like 72 hours. It's really great.
Isn't that what Ted Nugent does? I could have sworn that was his
he murders. Ted Nugent murders brain cells. He's murdered all of his own. I don't know if he's moved on to anyone else's. Right? Shit, man. Yeah, throw Ted Nugent in the sequel. That'd be great because there's no amount of crossbow bolts that are going to stop this killer. Like the Nuge would not be able to kill it and grill it. It would definitely work the other way around.
Well, he is the Motor City Madman. So
yeah, man. I've got to. We have to thank we have to thank Van Halen for rendering Nuge irrelevant once and for all many years ago.
Oh, there's many, many things we need to thank Van Halen for, but that's definitely one of the services to humanity. Although I will say, there was a period where Ted Nugent made some pretty badass rock and roll music, man. I definitely,
Cat Scratch Fever, which he did not sing on, by the way.
Wang Dang Sweet Poon Tang. I mean,
right. But I mean, by the time he got to Weekend Warriors, he was washed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he still made some great rock. There's definitely
he made some great rock.
I mean. He definitely.
Oh yeah, he didn't sing Stranglehold.
I will give him credit for that though. There's some great rock and roll.
No, like I said, I mean it's good that Van Halen came and made him irrelevant when they did.
It's crazy to think that like Rush and Van Halen were opening for Ted Nugent. Like there's a time when Ted Nugent was so big that he was like the main draw, and then Van Halen was just an opening band. It's like, isn't that weird?
Can you imagine going on after Van Halen?
I know, exactly. Well, Sabbath found out what that was like. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that being said, isn't that crazy to think that at one point that Ted Nugent was that big, where like freaking Van Halen was in Rush for opening bands?
I mean, I'm just flashing to like episodes of that '70s show. You know what I mean? Like Eric Foreman and Donna in the Vista Cruiser. You know, like that's when the Nuge.
Yep.
And that's before people got to know him.
Well, I mean, even in the 80s, he was just seen as like this crazy rock and roll guy. He wasn't like, when the Damn Yankees and stuff, it wasn't like...
Damn Yankees was fucking terrible.
But that was a very successful band, though, that made a lot of hits. And so people didn't think
people have bad taste.
People didn't think of him as being, a political guy back in those days. He was just a rock
I'm
star.
just talking about the songs when it comes to Damn Yankees. It was awful.
I would disagree with that. I think there's actually there's some good Damn Yankees stuff.
They were awful.
I don't agree with that. But
the Can You Take Me High? It's so bad.
That's one song. There's a bunch of other good stuff, man. I listened to both those records a lot. So
She's Coming of Age, whatever the other song was.
That's a very Jack Blazy kind of song, yeah.
Yeah, I'll still pass, man. And then isn't there? There's like the music video where the Nuge is like shooting like rifle rounds out of his Paul Reed Smith into he comes out of a shack with his guitar as like a gun.
I can't remember. Yeah. Oh, by the way,
some dumb stuff that the Nuge did. But since we just scraped on the topic of bad taste.
That's true.
Let's introduce today's topic.
Yeah, it's a twofer. So one thing is that both Ryan and I want to react to a video that Rick Beato came out with recently, and this is something that a lot of other people have reacted to. But we want to throw our 2 cents in there about what we think about it, which is why is music getting worse? And then the other thing that we're going to talk about, and this is something that I've discussed with students for decades, which is like, this guy is the best guitar player, man. This guy's the best guitar player. And like, what does that even mean?
This is kind of like a new episode of What the Kids Are Listening To.
In a way, but it's like one of those things where I've had this conversation with people about, Carlos Santana is the best guitar player. Eric Clapton, man, he's the best guitar player. Oh, Joe Bonamassa, he's the best guitar player. Eddie Van Halen's the best guitar player. Oh, man, Tim Henson's the best guitar player in the world. Steve Morse is the best guitar player in the world. So we're going to deconstruct that a little bit later on. But so getting in...
Shout out to Tom Frost. We're going to deconstruct that.
That's true. Actually, it's Scott Allen that.
Yeah.
That's also a shout out to Tom Frost.
Nice. Right, so, got it. Yeah, okay. I just caught up.
If we X-ages it, we'd also be doing a shout out
to Tom
Frost.
Yes, that's right.
Too.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. So by the way, everybody out there...
Which, by the way...
You know what you must do when trouble comes along? You must X-ages it.
You must say, yes, you must. And that reminds me, we're just ever so slightly past the 1-year anniversary of our debut album release.
Which I think everyone should celebrate it by going to www.xagesband.com and downloading as many copies or streaming as many copies of the album as you possibly can in the traditional way that you celebrate the release of an album.
That's right. That's www.exagesband.com.
Enjoy.
And that doesn't mean the podcast is over, folks. No. We know we'll say that again before we sign off. But
so Rick Beato had 2 reasons he said.
And Rick Beato is a YouTuber. He's a music professor,
very well
producer.
Known.
I differ with him on his charity towards '90s music, but but you know what? Rick is the kind of person who I could actually have a conversation about that stuff with.
Yeah, and
that was constructive.
He's actually very good at what he does. I'll give him that. I don't agree with Rick Beato that often, actually, but I do think that he's very good at what he does. His channel is fantastic. He does a great job with his video production. He's provocative. He makes interesting content. He asks big and small questions, which is kind of cool.
His interview, he interviewed Yngwie.
Sitting through an interview
and Marty Friedman,
is very challenging. That's a very challenging place for anybody to be. So,
which I was impressed because again, I think Beato is, his band Billionaire had its success in the '90s. He's just a little more charitable about '90s garbage music like Pearl Jam than I would be.
But he's just keeping it in the mainstream. That a lot of people have positive feelings about '90s music for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, like I said, bad taste is going to be part of our discussion.
So the 2 points that he made though is that number 1, music is too easy to make, and number 2, music is too available and too easy to consume. That was basically the 2 reasons he thinks music's getting worse. Now, I think there's a whole bunch more on top of that. Yep. But why don't you go ahead and react to either one of those things? Let's
there's, part of his thesis was that, music... So he used the example of using drum machines.
Yeah. Or turning the live drums into a drum machine by using Beat Detective, too, basically. Right. Yeah, Which essentially, why even bother with a live drummer then at that point? You may as well just use Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer.
Why pay a drummer?
Yeah, exactly.
Which by the way...
Why record live drums if you're just going to...
Right.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, we did pay a drummer.
Yeah, that's true.
We do have an excellent drummer, Alex Bosson, and Tom Frost.
And actually, all my albums have always... None of my albums have ever had Beat Detective. It's all been live performances. You know what I mean? Even the guitars. Dude, the way I roll with Scott Allen Project, and actually X-Ages too, is I'll do whole takes. I don't actually even punch in on rhythm guitars. I'll double rhythm guitars in whole takes. You know what I mean? That's freaking real. I mean, Van Halen recorded their whole album in like 4 days, live essentially. You know what I mean? It's like
guitars all pan left.
But I didn't double anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There were very little overdubs on that thing. You know, and that's the standard. That's what you do. You know
Yeah,
what
I mean, there's obviously, there's multiple guitar tracks on our album.
That's well, okay. I'm not saying that I'm doing that, but
Yeah.
being able to go and playing your shit live is what
Right.
it is. You know what I mean? And you should be able to do that. So
Yes.
obviously,
Agreed.
we're very much anachronistic in that way.
Yes.
That's very few people do it that way. Almost nobody. You know?
So he uses the example of like drum machines, right? Like, why go pay a drummer?
Mm-hmm.
Which, just makes things cheap. So I think we have to rewind further. So like I would, and I've said this on the podcast before, part of my beef with the 90s, like the advent of grunge meant you didn't have to find as many talented people to sign a band, right?
I think part of it's that.
So that's cheaper. There's a larger pool of less talented people, so you can release more albums.
I don't think that's what it was, though. I think it was more of a marketing just change. Like it's like this was old Coke, and now this is new Coke. This is like, you might have liked these other bands and thought
think
they
it's
were
both.
cool. I mean, I think you're right in the sense, but they didn't sign more bands when the grunge thing happened. They still signed the same number of bands, but it was just like, okay, we don't have to find these great bands anymore. We just find whoever.
Well, right. I mean, think about it.
As long as the look is right, I mean, it's.
I don't know what the numbers were, and I could be totally off base, but think about a band. I don't know. Give me a kick-ass band that has like at least 5 members in it.
A kick-ass, 90s band?
No, just like a kick-ass band before the 90s.
Judas Priest.
Yeah, Judas Priest. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's 5 guys in that band.
Well, there's 4 men and 1 god.
Yes, one metal god.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
That-
So you've got management, you've got 5 members of the band. They all have to. Judas Priest is special to me because you can hear the band get better album to album. If you start at the beginning and go all the way to Painkiller, by the time you get to Painkiller, like Glenn and KK are playing some awesome stuff, and it's Glenn and KK. I've never heard any rumors about any like ringers being brought in.
No.
So that's the band. So 5 guys have to get paid. Management has to get paid, and so if you're a record executive and you've got to find the next Judas Priest or another Judas Priest, you have to find another band of like 5 people who are also awesome at their instruments, and then you have to pay all 5 of those people, and all of that, right?
I think
why do that when I can just like find like 0.5 talented
Whoever.
guys? I'm going to give Dave Grohl a 0.5,
Yeah.
and then 2 other worthless hacks. Like I can duplicate that formula all the time.
Yeah,
Just
but
give me a bunch of losers that make crappy music.
That's something that was
cheap.
It happened though because it was a counter to part of what we're describing is the same thing really because throughout the 80s it just got better and better and better. The quality of musicianship
And bigger and more expensive to produce.
but also more elite. The musicians were more and more and more elite as it went along. You know what I mean? And by the time it got to the 90s, that's part of what the counterculture part of it was. It was like, okay, well, it's not just the elite ultra people who could do this. Like these are superheroes. No, anybody can be in a rock band. That's what rock and roll should be, man.
Well, that's what punk was.
That's what grunge was, a shittier, more pop-oriented reaction to grunge. Or to punk, I'm sorry.
Right.
So it was just like that. It was just basically that, and then look, we're not going to be polished. We're going to be kind of fucked up looking, and we're all going to be on drugs, and we're going to suck. But we're real. You know what I mean? This is more real. We're stripping it down. And then that's just why when our generation was coming of age, so it's like, oh man, this is just more real. Like all that stuff before was all this glitzy glamour stuff. This is like for real.
So I think it's both, right? It's a cheaper product, but it's also a cultural backlash.
Kind of similar to like reality television. It's like way cheaper to just hire people to go pretend that they're doing stuff rather than scripting and paying writers and producers and actors.
Right. It's like when Raised by Wolves, the best show on television, got canceled by asshole David Zaslav at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, for a new
and then they
Real Housewives 25 or whatever.
Yeah, for my 600-pound housewives.
Yeah, exactly.
My 600-pound sister wives.
I can't tell you. I'm stunned.
My 600-pound sister wives addiction intervention. Yeah.
I was literally at the gym this morning on the elliptical cross trainer looking up, and I have no choice in what's on the televisions there. I'm just okay. Well, I looked up and there was like one of these housewife shows on, and I was just horrified. I'm like, who is this for? Like,
Totally.
what is this? I mean, like, it's like, it's not only is it like bad, but it's like so clearly scripted. Like, nobody does this. It's like, but
Yeah.
it's like scripted, but with people that weren't actors. So like, you just say these lines, and we're gonna, and it's just so gross and horrible. I mean,
so what's so dismaying about that is that it exists because people are watching.
it's true, and it wouldn't keep existing if people didn't watch.
Right.
And it's like, it's just crazy. Like Blaze About Wolves, if more people had watched that, then they probably would be. It wouldn't. I mean, money talks. If you put your attention on something, it's going to stay.
And a ton of people did watch that, but it had so much more overhead.
Yeah.
They wouldn't turn the same profit. So it's
Yeah.
not the same equation. So, so music has taken, like music, film, and music and film, right?
Well,
Television.
television's
right?
kind of already dead.
It's
off
kind
the
of,
medium,
exactly. So it's the same. I mean, they're similar art forms, right? So music these days is like the reality TV version of music.
Yeah.
It's just like dude in his bedroom shredding.
Yeah, which is now what Guitar Heroes are, is dudes in their bedroom shredding.
Which, you know what? There's a lot of great players that,
But there's no bands. Like, are they playing live shows at all? I mean, there's a few that are, but it's like go play live shows. That's what you do if you're in a rock band. Or if you're in a band, if you're a guitar player, you go play. You don't sit in your bedroom and make videos. But I think maybe we're wrong on that. Maybe is what you do now. I mean, maybe we're the ones who are wrong on that because we're just the old
I don't
school.
know.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, it's definitely. I mean, I certainly know that for ex-Aegis, when we eventually go out and play somewhere, it's going to be a certain kind of gig, and we're going to do it in a certain kind of way, and that's going to require some financial investment.
Well, playing live though is what you do if you're in a band. That's what you do.
Right.
That being in a bedroom by yourself making videos with a drum machine and a harmonizer is not being in a band. But then maybe the idea of being in a band, being as the pinnacle of what you do as a musician, maybe that's just an old school perspective. That's just something we're bringing in with us from our history.
So so what was that? Can you play the video of that guy that you showed me, and then we'll put it up to the mic so our listeners can hear this. So there's this phenomenon of the high, the player who's got a high level of virtuosity.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here.
Okay.
Of course, but first of all, I've got to actually do an ad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, YouTube wants my money so bad.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go.
This is an artist called Buried Alive.
Okay, this phrase is already like 2 measures too long.
Yeah. Dude, I'm totally gonna beat this level. Hang on a
Yep.
sec. I'm on this. I'm getting ready to jump. Oh, nope. I'm fighting the boss now. Oh, no. Hit the B button. Hit the B button. Hit the B button. Oh, God. No.
Quick, take a healing potion.
Come on. Hit the B button.
Up, down, left, right.
I knew I had
A,
the
B,
code. I
select,
forgot
start.
it. Damn it. I wasn't fast enough.
You forgot the Konami
Gotta
code.
start over again.
So, the virtuosity there is undeniable. Like,
Yeah.
I hate the tone, and...
I hate the music, too.
So I think we can look at it from a couple different perspectives, and one of them is there's a whole like subgenre. So I think there's people like, so for that guy, I think that playing guitar is just it's just a game.
Yeah, it's something you do to get YouTube followers. That's what it's probably, the music is a secondary part to his YouTube channel and his Twitch feed and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
And I would ask him, like, what's the emotion you're trying to communicate?
It's impressing people, making them give you a thumbs up. That's the emotion he's.
It's just scoring points.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. Literally, I mean, in the song, that's probably what you're trying to do.
Is that what the name of the song is? Scoring points?
No, I think it was called Code Orange or something like that.
I mean, if I were that dude, like, in my bedroom all the time, that's not the kind of scoring I'd be like trying to achieve.
You'd be scoring the tops of artisanal loaves that you are building lovingly to put in the ovens. That's
I thought that was obvious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
so
this is tough for us
there's
because
that.
there's a very real danger of you and I sounding like old men yelling at clouds.
well, so I'll flip it. Okay, so there's a video game out there called Undertale.
Yes.
It's like have you encountered
I
Undertale?
haven't,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So there's a dude. So first of all, I mean, the music in the game is composed well, right? I mean, there's been video game music before.
Yeah, but
that was composed that actually. I mean, Castlevania as a series.
I mean, Mario Brothers music forever. People have been playing that. You know what I mean? Like the
dude, Symphony of the Night. There are later Castlevania games where like the score while you're playing the game, it's like symphonic.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it's like it's better than you would expect.
Even the
it to be.
8-bit one had some cool music. I mean, that's not like it didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Vampire Killer is a track off of Castlevania. So now, those had merit, composed by an actual composer, over in Japan that made the game. And all that guy had to work with was this 8-bit sound chip, so I respect all of that, right?
Yeah.
And, and so Undertale has that kind of aesthetic, right? It's like lo-fi role-playing game, right?
Yep.
And there's some songs there that like have some really good melodies in them. And then there's a YouTuber, his name is Rashad EB. He does metal versions of Undertale songs and others, but his feel is really good, his vibrato is really good, and the compositions themselves are melodic enough to support that type of playing, right? Like his guitar tone is guitar tone.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, it doesn't have a bunch
Super
of
ultra harmonized.
Well, yeah, he
almost sounds like a Casio keyboard at some points. You know what I mean?
I remember being a kid, like going into Best, and then there was like the row of keyboards.
Yeah.
And you could just press the demo button on every keyboard, and they would play some obnoxious shit. And then you get them all playing like out of time with one another.
Just joy for everybody.
Yeah, that's part of how I made adults like hate my childhood.
But I guess here's the thing that bums me about the whole thing is like, where's the songs? Where's the music you're making? You're just doing these weird sort of like experiments and experimental things, but you're not actually writing a song or doing a melody or building a riff. You're not actually, that to me is like the thing that bums me out about it. And also there's zero rock and roll to any of it. Like, dude, I can't imagine like freaking, Richie Blackmore doing that, or something.
Two things. So if we separate out the that guy is obvious, like music.
Well, there's a lot of other. He's not. It's not. We're trying to not pick on that guy. Just
no. But and there's other that aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
So that aesthetic is there's who's that other kid, Max Ostro, right? Killer player, right? He kind of sounds like a video game most of the time. I mean, he's a better player than I am. He can there's nothing that I can play he can't play, right? Like from a technical perspective.
This gets us into the next thing we need to talk about, which is, and this is something I've heard people say about this gentleman we just listened to, and other people are like, man, this guy's the best guitar player on the planet. And I don't believe that is a thing.
No, it's not. It's not a competition.
Thing. It isn't. It's not the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like, it really comes down to aesthetic and taste and what touches you. To some people, they can, without irony, say that Carlos Santana is the greatest guitar player in the world, and to them, that makes sense. That's because what he's putting out is what touches them. You know what I mean? And I think that when I listen to that, I listen to Tim Henson, some of these even Tosin Abasi, some of these guys, like, I just don't hear any music happening. That's the thing. That's the thing that bums me out about it. I want him to hear I want to hear like riffs and songs and choruses and melodies and soaring leads. I don't want to hear these weird like abstract thought experiments. You know what I mean? And it's just, almost like getting trapped in someone's weird like anxiety attack, and you're stuck in it with them.
It's the sound of anxiety, and I guess anxiety is what these younger generations have to express.
I guess.
Right? Every teenager has anxiety and every young person does.
Most everybody, period, has anxiety. It's just how
absolutely.
You handle it, you know what I mean?
But I also I don't know. I've just never expressed myself musically that way.
No, not at all. But to me, musically, you need to express whatever's in your heart and whatever.
Yeah.
And if video game anxiety music is what's in your heart, then good on you.
I had anxiety as a kid, sure, I've always worked my emotions out through my guitar, but I don't know. There's just a certain kind of like mathy anxiety. There's I have another student who's really into Dance Gavin Dance, who I just realized was a Sacramento native band.
I actually just had a conversation with someone about that the other day. So this exact band.
And so the songs are good, right? It's just I wish they weren't interrupted with so much blip, 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 blip,
but that's just that you and me thing. That's just our generation. We don't get that.
Yeah, did people who were older than that, like, were they saying the same thing about Michelangelo Badio back in the day?
Well, they said about him is he doesn't play with any feel. That's what they would say about him. It's like, well, and we've already discussed on this podcast before that shredding on guitar is playing with feeling. It is, and that's I couldn't say that what that is not playing with feeling. It's just the feeling that is like it's anxiety. It's basically like it's almost like Inside Out too. If you look at anxiety.
Yeah, I will say I don't like that dude's vibrato at all.
I know, but I don't doubt.
There's not much of it there.
I don't expect that he's expressing what he's feeling inside. I would give him credit for that. I look at that and I'm thinking, man, I just wish it was cooler. I wish it was like more. I wish it was more like Bad Boys from Whitesnake or I'm the One from Van Halen or something like that, with like more of an attitude and more balls.
I always think of John Sykes as like the complete opposite of this particular zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's just ballsy, badass music.
It's expressive, right? It breathes.
But it's got attitude, man.
Yeah,
it's got all kinds of attitude. It's not like
it's got confidence. It's not. It's like It doesn't have like I'm rocking back and forth like
I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow and oh my god. That's the vibe I get. I mean, I don't doubt the skill. I don't doubt the hard work it took to achieve that skill. Those guys,
which I think is great.
Those guys did the same thing you and I did. Sat in a room for hours and hours and hours practicing to be able to play that stuff.
Obsessing over like one drill or phrase.
That's something that needs to be applauded regardless of whether I think the end result is great.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think these great players. Just what he does. To me, I think that it's stupid to say this person's better than that person. Eddie Van Halen is not better than Jimmy Page. If I think he's better than Jimmy Page, I love Eddie Van Halen more than Jimmy Page, but you can't say that. You can't say that Steve Vai is better than let's say I don't know Joe Bonamassa. You can't say
you can say that like. Even like a 1 hour old newborn baby is better than Kurt Cobain.
That's true. You can say that for sure. Yeah.
You can say that my dog is better than Kurt Cobain.
Yes, you can say that. Yes, that's true. You can't say that.
So have you heard about I guess there's this.
But the point I'm trying to make is that there is no best. There's only what you prefer, and especially at a certain skill level. Because look. There's things that I can play that the guys like that can't play, and there's things he can play that I can't play. But if either one of us decided we're going to sit down and spend a month learning the other person's music, we could do it. Any guitar player that's technically proficient could sit and learn what someone else is doing if they really want to do it. Mm-hmm. But the question is that helping you be you, though? Is that helping you express what you are by learning someone else's
Maybe
things?
it is. I mean, you imitate first, but...
But I mean, that's something I feel like that's something you do in your formative years as a player.
That's not the end goal.
I very much know who I am as a guitar player now.
Me too.
You know what I mean? And it's one of those things that I know that isn't who I am.
And together we are ex-ages.
It's true. Well, with some help, with some friends.
Yes.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make, though, is that, there isn't a best. I think that's not helpful to say this person's better than that person. What you can say is, I prefer this person's music over this person's music. You can say that.
I think that there are some... So to piggyback on what you were saying about... like you imitate in your formative years. There are musicians who are more fully realized than others.
How do you mean? You mean like they're more fully speaking with an authentic voice? Is that what you mean?
Well, they've reached a level of control on the instrument to where they have a voice that they can express consistently.
Well, I'm speaking of people who are already at that level. I'm not talking about people who there's once you reach a certain level of technical proficiency in the guitar, then you're speaking through your own voice at that point. You know what I mean? And you've usually got to go through the process of listening to people you admire, imitating, trying on these different personalities, and it's almost like your regular personality.
I mean, it's just like growing up.
Yeah, exactly. You just sort of try on stuff, and then you eventually figure out who you are. Once you find a certain level of technical proficiency where you can do anything you can imagine, then you are just playing with your authentic voice. But that's not better or worse than anyone else's authentic voice. It's really just another voice in a chorus that is all of humanity.
Right. Unless it's Kurt Cobain.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Now back to the show. Yes. I fully agree. I would be happy to piss and shit on the grave of Kurt Cobain. Absolutely. So the man most directly responsible for the death of rock.
Well, I mean, shit could be used as fertilizer, so it has like a purpose. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to waste it and help any life grow. Yeah, right. So, which reminds me, the California History Museum has a guitar exhibit going on right now.
Nice.
Which, we really should attend. We should do like a remote episode of Rock Guitar Confidential. So a student of mine Whoa, my microphone's trying to twist around. It's possessed, which
Oh my
would be
God!
awesome.
Did you get possessed by Louis Shortstuds for a second?
Oh, dude, I knew he was gonna waddle on into this.
Whoa!
You know what's hilarious is that like I had a buddy of mine over to visit last night who's we've been friends since we were like young teenagers.
Wait a minute, is
right?
he also a midget porn star?
No, but like I think we were watching Beavis and Butthead last night, and I forget what inspired it, but. Like my buddy Jason invoked Louis Shortstud with like you know what I mean, like a decades old thing that had nothing to do with our podcast.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's the in joke. It lives now in many corners.
It's like Candyman. He invoked it. Don't say it 3 times.
You know, so like I'm not afraid of some dude with a knife if it were Louis Shortstud
With something else in his hands. Yes, I get you.
Right. Well, but I mean, you know, like his reach. I mean, he hits some very sensitive areas with that knife, right? So, like, death from Louis Shortstud stabbing would be much more traumatic.
In so many
It'd
ways.
be a worse way to go.
He's got like
trust
the
me.
drag makeup on and everything. I mean, my God, dude, I can't imagine a more horrible way to go.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I did what I always do.
okay.
I totally derailed where we were going with that.
No, that's good. I'm glad we had a moment of levity because I have a picture to show you of an exhibit from the California History Museum.
Okay.
So I'm just going to show it to you, and we'll hear your reaction.
Okay.
And then you can just describe it to our audience and tell us what this is like a Rorschach test.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's a Rorschach test.
Yes, all right, fair enough.
Okay, so here's the picture that they sent me.
Dun. All right, dude.
No, just look a little closer.
Let me see.
There's 2 guitars in that picture right next to each other, as if they're on the same level with one another.
Oh. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense, man. Well, at least, you know what's funny? This is how positive a thinker I am. I just immediately went to the Van Halen guitar and not the Nirvana guitar. I just immediately went to that. You know, and that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, okay, Van Halen, dude, everything's great. That's the first thing I thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then there's that other stuff next to it.
You know what you got to do?
What the
You
hell?
got to not pay attention to the other stuff. The other stuff is for someone else. That's
Dude,
not for
so
me.
so
Yeah.
there's the EVH guitar played by Eddie Van Halen with a like a Van Halen like tour. I think it's California Jam.
Nice.
It's so it's like a concert poster like framed right behind the EVH red, black, and white stripes. Oh, it's the EVH Kramer. It's like the Kramer Beretta.
Yeah. That's probably like an 82, 83 version. Of
Yeah, I think that's right. Played by Eddie Van Halen, and then next to it, there's a left-handed Fender Strat played with,
Yes.
like messed around with by Kurt Cobain.
Well, you know what?
And the Nirvana poster is bigger by like a third.
Well, that's partially because of the time that if they're doing a vintage poster, that's what it's going to be. But you got to realize that to people who don't know music, like they don't know the difference. They just think, oh, Nirvana's a great band. You know, Van Halen's a great band. They're all great bands. Yep. They don't know the difference. You know what I mean?
So that's Rick Beato's thesis: is that people just don't know. I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? Like,
well, no, I mean, I think partially it's that the artists are able to make people who shouldn't be artists are now considered artists. Basically, is a part of what it is. And then the other thing that I think, and I totally agree with Rick Beato's point on this too, is that it's just I've said this on this podcast before. Like music's like tap water that people don't even value it at all. It's just as much as I want, whenever I want. It's just right there. You know, I pay $10 a month or whatever, and I can have as much music as I want. If something is that devalued, where you spend $10 a month and you have as much as you want, then you just don't give a shit. You know, it's like, well, whatever. I got thousands of songs. I found, you're not invested. Like back when we were kids, like you had to spend our week's allowance or 2 weeks allowance to go buy that tape or that CD.
Dude, a compact disc cost $20 when they first came out, and that's not adjusted for inflation.
No, that's back in those days, which means it's probably like $45 now. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, probably $50. Yeah.
So, but we would go and spend the money on that because we invested in those bands. Like the Dokken Beast from the East live album, I remember listening to that and looking at the photos and just sitting in my room listening to that over and over again. For like
and then
summer.
using your imagination.
Yeah, but that's
while
what
you listen to the music. Yeah,
but you actually invested in those bands. Whereas nowadays it's like tap water. Like you don't invest in tap water. No one even gives tap water a second thought. And it's the same thing with music. And I think the combination of those two things is to some degree led us to where we are now. We're talking about the mainstream. We're talking about the people like the 70% that are down the middle kind of people. There's always gonna be people on the other end. Some people who just don't like music at all. There's
enthusiasts.
There's like 2 or 3% of of people who don't like music, period. They just listen to talk radio and podcasts. And then there's like the
hopefully our podcast, and then you're kind of making up for some of that.
That's
so
true.
you know,
we're giving you music anyway, so sorry.
Right.
And then there's like the other 15% where it's like the hardcore music fans who love music and invest in artists. And then, but the vast majority of people are in the middle. They're like that 75% who just who aren't really that invested. Music's just something that's on the radio on the way to or from something. You know, they don't really care about.
Yeah, it blows my mind people who are just not artistically engaged at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing's true with television. It's probably the same person watching The Real Housewives. You know what I mean? Who doesn't give a shit
My
about music.
600-pound sister wives.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I think that's, and we talked about this before. I think that comes down to a lack of passion, like not being passionate about anything. You know, that like being passionate about what your Instagram posts are or what your TikTok is. That's what you're passionate about. You know, it's like that's so transitory and so like it's not important in the grand scheme of anything at all. And who you are tomorrow is not going to give a shit about what you did yesterday. It's just, whereas to me, being inspired by Eddie Van Halen is as much part of who I am now as it was when I was 12.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The older I get, it's, you know, I mean, you know, I'm in my about to be crossing over into late 40s.
Yep.
It's
crossing over with John Edwards.
Yes, except that I'll actually be getting older. It won't be a total con.
That man was the freaking talk to the dead people. What are you talking about? Come
man,
on.
I'm sure that guy made enough money to retire.
I hope so. Yeah. We can talk to the dead people for free.
God, you know, we live in the land of the con artists.
It's
true. Just insane. That's
true.
That's what America is.
America
right?
is definitely the birthplace of the con artists.
It's just all, yeah. Anyway, so here's what comes to mind for me, right? So if music is like tap water, you know, people still buy bottled water.
That's the 10% we're talking about.
Right. So basically you got to find the person who's still willing to pay for water.
Yeah, exactly.
And then water companies, you know, everybody buys bottled water.
Well, that's why there's a lot of these indie labels. That's why artists are doing. I mean, as an artist now, you have to roll at the time. So things like these YouTube channels people are doing, and Twitch channels and TikTok, you have to do all that shit now. None of which has anything to do with what we grew up thinking music was. Music was not that. You know what I mean?
No, it was all about the music. So it'd be like if you were a water enthusiast.
Yeah.
Man, this is really good spring water. That's great. Well, so like when I buy water, I buy it for the container. I buy Liquid Death because, you know, it comes in a can that I can transport to and from work. There was the charity angle when they started, so I liked that as well. But, I mean, even before Liquid Death, I bought bottled water I'm buying the bottle.
Yeah.
Because I need a bottle to carry my water around in, right? That's so I always thought of it that like nothing is what it says it is. You don't buy bottled water for the water; you buy it for the bottle.
Sure,
right?
I get you.
You know, I don't pay studio rent; I pay for advertising.
Yeah.
Even if it's still called studio rent, right? You know, like nothing is what it says it is on the surface, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so as it relates to music, right? It's not about the music anymore; it's about whatever the bottle analogy is.
Yeah. What's your TikTok? What's your YouTube handle? You know, what's that?
Fan engagement.
But the problem with that is you have to keep changing and raising the stakes over and over and over and over again, and you can only do that for so long, and then fans just can move on to the next guy who's got the
it's a rat
channel.
race.
Yeah, exactly. It's an impossible race to win. You know what I mean? And so, but the only thing, all that's going to be there that's going to last is the music you make at the end of the day, and then hopefully people will find that, and then that's something people can invest in. But the problem is taking that approach, taking that attitude about it. You're always aiming at the tiny minority. That the people who are going to be passionate about music. So I think maybe, you know, that what those guys are doing, like the TikTok people and the Twitch people and the guys who are doing the YouTube videos for, you know, in their bedroom, you know, maybe they have an insight into this culture that is something that I find abhorrent and terrible. I just despise everything about it. You know what I mean? It's like, but that being said, you can't change the world. You know, you have to be able to ride the waves as they come. You can't decide what is. You know, I have one student who is an adult now. And we have a great time at their lesson. Like it's hilarious, right? To the point where we've talked about Twitch streaming the lesson, and I'm certain it would get a fuck ton of views, like because it's people having fun learning guitar, right? Yeah.
I think that would be a marketable thing. I just don't know if I would subject either of us to it, because then there's got to be fan engagement, and I don't want to send messages back and forth to somebody.
Yeah, it's called engagement farming.
Engagement farming. Yeah,
which is it's so
not
horrible.
to mention privacy and stuff.
It's so horrible and empty. You know what I mean? It's just I look at that. Everything about it I hate.
Yeah, so Facebook has turned everybody into, it's like a generation of narcissists.
Yeah, exactly. Everything. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. It's like, I just hate it. Everything about it. You know?
I don't think it was even that bad during the MTV era.
No, it was.
I mean,
Well,
'cause there's plenty of that.
Everybody who got attention back then deserved to get attention. That's the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that people now, everybody thinks they're worthy of attention. You know what I mean? And in a lot of cases, they are. Look at, you hear about this Hawk Tua girl, whatever?
Who?
Exactly. That's the exact right response to this. But apparently, there's some.
So that's her. Was she named after phlegm?
There's some
Coughing up phlegm?
You're not far off.
Am I not?
I don't know all about the details, but apparently there's some girl. She's like some mid-20s girl that got interviewed on TikTok, and someone said something sexually suggestive to her, and she went like Hawktua, like that, and then she went viral.
Isn't that a U2 album, Hawktua, baby?
But this is what I'm saying, and now she's got representation. She's got like an agent who came moving in because she got all these hits on TikTok and all this stuff, and like, okay, so just because you like make a spitting gesture because someone says something sexually inappropriate to you, now you're going to be a star for that. You're going to have your 10 minutes of fame or whatever. 15 minutes is like a long time ago. 10 minutes
seconds,
yeah, exactly. But there's an agent running now to represent you because you did a weird TikTok video? See, that's where we are, and that's what we're up against as artists. Is that like people don't give a shit about anything quality? It's just whatever weird thing is going to distract you for the next 10 seconds. That's what it is.
Well, and you know, and it gives the consumer that dopamine hit. We're also an addiction culture.
It's true. I mean,
everything. You know, so how did I hear it?
But that explains why music's getting worse and why it's becoming increasingly difficult for artists to sustain a career, is because it's just an engagement farming attention currency is what we're in. And
so young people, you know, a large number of young people are getting their dopamine hit from something that's not music.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? They're getting it from, you know,
Instagram
playing from social media or, you know, mobile gaming or gaming. And look, I play video games, right? But that's because I need a hobby because guitar's not my hobby.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. And I'm not much into like raising ships and bottles and stuff. That's too much like work.
Sports is kind of like that for me. Sports is kind of my hobby. Like,
hey, Kings just signed DeMar DeRozan.
Hell yeah, dude! And that with the draft choices. We also, who's that guy? Was it Jalen McDaniels?
No, it was Davis.
No, we got another free agent. It was something McDaniels. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, well I mean, that guy's going to be a third stringer.
No, he's going to be someone who's like bench depth. You know?
Yeah. Like he's like through. So we
re-signed Malik Monk. I mean, that's
re-signed Malik Monk. Yeah. So now we just need a power forward that can do some rebounding, shot blocking.
The load's not going to be all on De'Aaron Fox anymore, which is awesome. So it's going to be DeMar DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox
and Malik Monk for scoring. Yeah, right? Like you can't stop all three of them. Well, imagine if we ran a 3-guard lineup against some.
They probably will with
they will like small ball.
And then get somebody who's like a legit power forward, you know, in there, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
This is
so we got it. So Scott, I need to get you on board for Kings and Wings this year.
I'm a vegetarian, dude.
Well, okay.
I don't drink.
Wait, I didn't say anything about drinking. You know, I just said basketball. Where did the drinking part happen?
Wings usually beer goes along with that. So
okay, there's carrots and stuff. Okay, are you down for Carrots and Kings this year? Hell yeah. Okay, good. Done. Sure, all right, man.
Absolutely. The Wings
there'll be
holds no sway for me.
Okay, so like real question. If I got like Impossible chicken nuggets, do you eat those?
Yeah, I'll eat that. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'll get some. Dude, we got an air fryer.
I'll go with the carrots over that any day, though. I mean, for sure.
Well, right. So carrots and celery sticks too.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
And basketball.
Sounds good.
All right.
Anything with basketball, dude. I've actually promised my son I'm going to start taking him to at least a couple Kings games a year, and because we went to a couple months ago and it was really fun. So we're gonna.
Hell yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna probably go catch a Niners preseason game here in a little bit too. So see, this is where Ryan and I went on the sports thing kind of spit. I am first and foremost a San Francisco 49ers fan. That's my favorite team of all time. My secondary allegiance.
That's fine.
My secondary allegiance is to the Sacramento Kings. That's my second favorite sports team of all time. And then my third allegiance is to the San Francisco Giants. So that's like the three teams that I follow.
Yeah, so I've got no quarrel with any of those other teams.
So those are the teams that I follow. They're like my teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as long as you don't say the Lakers. Or the Warriors.
I am a fan of the Warriors too. Secondary team in the
well, the Warriors got worse.
They did.
Did you hear they got Buddy Chuckets?
Yeah, I saw.
Oh man,
I think it's funny to me is that they're excited about getting Buddy Hield. Like, you guys know
they're not.
You know it's Buddy Hield, right?
They aren't actually. I mean, that's what's in the press, but
I mean, Buddy Hield is
just wait
not
till
making anyone better.
Dude, Buddy and Steph, like, just wait till they stop getting along. Like, after Buddy,
well, they're the same player. They do the same thing. I mean,
Steph's got a better handle, even though it's not the best.
Steph's more of a point guard who runs the offense, but he's an amazing shooter. All Buddy does is chucks threes.
Yeah, that's all Buddy contributes.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like a 50% free ball hitter, which is still enough to be points. But I mean,
so just wait until Buddy loses some games for the Warriors and like see how Steph starts to feel about that.
Yeah, Klay Thompson getting replaced with Buddy Hield.
Clank
Thompson, but that's still
they were buddies.
Move,
I love it. The Warriors are gonna suck next year.
Yeah, they got Steph Curry, man. They've got a chance.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's one of the all-time great players to ever play. So it's like he's still
not anymore.
Well, he's still in the top 10-ish as a player.
Yeah, whatever. So the Kings are going to be better this year, and that's great.
That's true. The Kings will be better. So I think the Kings will definitely look into that. Probably missing the play-in. We'll probably get a 5-6 seed this year. I'm going to guess. Around there. Fighting with the Mavericks.
I'm thinking like 4 or 5, right? Yeah. Some other teams got worse.
We're in that group of like Minnesota, the Mavericks.
The Warriors and the Clippers got worse, and
the Lakers ostensibly got worse too.
Yeah, the Lakers got worse, which is great.
They added Bronny James.
What a stupid fucking name is Bronny.
Well, his name is actually LeBron James Jr., but the difference
is it really?
Yeah, they call him.
Oh,
Bronny.
Good. Okay, I'm glad Bronny's a nickname. So I thought Bronny was like his legal name.
No, it's
okay. LeBron James Jr. That's better. I stand corrected.
That just shows you though. He just like doesn't want his dad's name. Like, Dad, really?
Well, I appreciate that. But so the Lakers got worse. The Clippers got worse.
Do you think he's happy to be playing on his dad's team? Do you think he's happy that his dad like made all this stuff happen, or do you think he's like, man, I kind of want to just be my own guy? Like, where do you think he is? Is he happy nepo baby, or is he sad nepo baby?
I don't know. He's rich. Who cares?
I mean, at the end of the day, I wonder, like, would that be a good thing? Are you excited? Because I remember seeing like the draft night. They showed someone handing him the Lakers hat, and he's looked like.
Damn it!
Dad made me. Yeah.
With all the enthusiasm of a kid who's being forced to take guitar lessons.
Exactly right. It's like,
well, then it's going to work out just as well as that, which is not very well at all.
I get to play with my dad. Yay! It's like kind of.
And the Trailblazers, they suck anyway. Yeah. So
we're going to be there fighting with the Mavs, the OKCs, the Minnesota. They're going to be that's going to be the group that we're in.
And that's kind of it, right? Yeah. I mean, the Pelicans are the Western Conference.
Denver Nuggets are
worse.
No freaking joke, man. Denver Nuggets are going to be.
Kings match up well against the Nugs, though.
They do. But the Nugs have got Jokic, which we have no answer for.
Sabonis is like Jokic light. It's not exactly the same. But I mean, Anyway, so
the listeners though, they come here for us to break down basketball talk. That's what this podcast is all about.
So do you think do you think that fans of Video Game Guitar Guy, I mean, do you think they have conversations like that, like we're having about sports?
Probably. Yeah, probably do. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's into different things. I respect that. You only get one life. Live it the way you want to, man. Don't let anyone tell you how to live your life. But I just wish it was cooler. I wish the music they make was cooler.
Yeah, and I think there are consequences to to younger generations getting their dopamine fix from short attention span media and low quality art.
Yeah.
Right. I think there are, what we'll see in the next 20 or 30 years. Like, I mean, I think we're already seeing negative effects of that, but.
Well, wait till computers are making all of it.
Yes. Our robot overlords are,
That's not that far away.
It's interesting. Like I now know what people mean when they can hear the AI-ness of something.
You know what though? It's funny if you look at the one of the things Beato pointed out is that a lot of the modern rock music is all completely quantized and beat detective to death. So it does sound like AI to me. It doesn't sound like people playing. If you listen to like Led Zeppelin 4 or even Van Halen 1, he
broke down the John Bonham shuffle. He quantized it, and then he played the original track.
That's happening that makes that feel like people playing in a room. It's an organic thing that if you quantize it, you lose that, and it sounds like a machine playing. And that's something that I think that whole like let's quantize everything. Let's make sure we have everything, like the gates are so quick that they'll shut down the guitars. Like it stops sounding like people playing.
You know what? Yeah. Metal is like one of the worst offenders.
Yeah, especially for that stuff.
Especially for like the super super tight like drum machine type drums. And
kind of thing. But that's what I mean is it doesn't sound like people playing anymore. If you listen to like the first Metallica album, that's heavy and aggressive, but it sounds raw and sounds like people playing in a room.
Yeah, the first of the 4 only Metallica albums. Yes,
that's another example of something that's super heavy that doesn't. Number one, it's not detuned, and number two, it's not beat detective or anything like that. So just because it's detuned and beat detective doesn't mean it's going to be heavy. You know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned tuning because there's also I have some students who are just obsessed with alternate tunings.
Yeah, it's too bad.
From across like genres, and like I wonder, like, do they think that that's just a shortcut to making something sound cool?
No, they don't know enough, and it's like you and I were when we were kids. Like we would see, like, oh wait, Warren DeMartini plays Charvel guitars. I gotta check that out. That's pretty cool. You know, so if they probably probably have some artists that they saw that I use this open D tuning or whatever. And they go, ooh, I gotta try that. That sounds pretty cool. I'm sure it's the same sort of thing. When we grew up, everyone had Floyd Roses, and everyone played in standard tuning or half step down tuning. You know, very occasionally someone would play in drop D or something. You know, but that was like the extent of the tuning differences.
Yeah, I know I experimented with the drop D a little bit, but I got rid of it pretty quick because I just figured, I mean, anything that I need to play, I can play in standard pitch.
Well, I play a 7-string. So it's one of those things, if I want something lower, I have my 7s right there. It's a low B, so I don't need to go
I
lower.
also own a 7-string.
I don't understand why you need to go lower than a low B. It doesn't make any sense to me, but
yeah.
I mean, unless your vocalist is just completely inept and can't do anything.
Ooh, there's a new genre called slam, which is like
is that sponsored by Denny's?
It's actually pretty rad, man. I've got you know, again, a student turned me on to it. I mean, if I had just listened to it all by itself, it sounded to me like Where the Slime Live era Morbid Angel, like that kind of heavy, right? Like that kind of death metal vocal.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I had just heard it in passing, I'd call it just death metal. But apparently, it's a subgenre called slam, and one of the notable practitioners of this new subgenre is a band called Guttural Slug.
Okay.
It's pretty badass.
Is it?
It is.
Oh,
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I mean,
okay,
it's
cool. Is there
super
awesome
death metal.
solos?
I didn't listen to enough of it to get to a solo.
Yeah, that's the only.
But
thing
just the heaviness, like I love it. It's all dark and evil. And
I'm kind of out if there's guttural vocals. I'm not a huge fan of that.
Depends on the context for me.
I'm pretty much out when that happens. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this.
I mean, I'm not at the time in my life. So for me, death metal was after the grunge apocalypse. I had to play something that was challenging, that was also heavy.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's what it was. I had to play in bands that were heavy and kind of death metal-y.
Yeah, I respect
to push myself forward.
There's a lot
as a
of
player,
great playing going on in death metal.
Absolutely.
I just hate the vocals so much.
Yeah, I guess my point is, so like if I'm listening to Individual Thought Patterns by Death,
yeah.
I bought that album because Andy LaRocque is on it.
That's a great. I mean, I love Chuck Schuldner's playing.
Right, absolutely. So I learned to ignore the vocals.
Yeah, that's what sucks though. I felt the same about Active Defiance is like that. I want to hear Chris Broderick's solo. I don't really care about the vocals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Dave Mustaine's vocals.
Well, no, Chris Broderick was in the band Active Defiance. With Henry, I can't remember his last name, is the vocalist. And we opened for those guys. We actually played, my Scott Allen project opened for those guys.
Nice.
All those guys are hell nice, especially Chris is a really nice dude.
Hell yeah.
Then the singer Henry was fine. It's just about the vocals. It loses me. Like you have all this great music going on, and there's this guy screaming and yelling over the top. It's like, well, why can't you just sing a melody?
So here's where I think it comes to the what emotion are you trying to communicate, and just that extreme aggression, like in the context of that music. I get it.
I guess. I'd
rather listen to so like, what emotion is Eddie Vedder trying to communicate with his awful voice?
I think falling down a flight of stairs, like.
I think it's talentless entitlement.
and self-aggrandizement. But
yes, right. So I don't get any of that from your typical death metal.
No,
vocalist.
I don't hate death metal, but I don't particularly like death metal. If that makes sense. Like I like elements of it. There's parts of it that I think Arch Enemy's got some cool stuff. I think Children of Bodom's got some cool stuff. And the melodic death metal.
Well, Arch Enemy's very melodic.
It is, but the vocals aren't. The vocals are, right. So that I appreciate the music. Born of Osiris. There's a bunch of bands in that world that I think have got even Shadows Fall. Bands like that. I think that they've got terrible vocals. I hate that kind of vocals. I really do. I hate punk and I hate hardcore. So because it has something to do with that, it makes me hate it even more. And especially considering the music is good. Like all the music underneath it's really good. Like this is great. Like have a real singer and then you get something.
I appreciate that. It doesn't put me off of it all the way. Although I've got to admit, as I've gotten older, I'm past the stage of my life where I'm gonna actively. I've got those those classic death metal albums like on my iPad, right? So if it shows that, like the other day I was driving home and a track off of Arch Enemy's Burning Bridges album when they still had a dude singer.
Okay.
if that comes on, I listened to it on the way home and I really dug it. Right? I'm not.
I like the music a lot.
Right.
I wish it was I wish it was cooler vocals. I'm not a fan of that kind of vocals.
No, I get that. I totally appreciate that.
I still appreciate
totally understand.
the band. I still appreciate the band. I'll listen to it. I have to kind of endure the vocals rather than I really love the hook on this or something.
And I'd still rather listen to that than I'm scoring points in an 8-bit video game guitar playing.
It's still got rock and roll to it and stuff like that.
Yeah, it still has total aggression.
That's why with Chuck Schuldiner, I'm more of a fan of Control Denied, which is a little bit more of a power metal band.
Yeah, Control Denied was great.
I'm more of a fan of that band than I am. I like and appreciate Death. I'm more a fan of that, because I want to hear melodic vocals, with my music. Especially I want heavy with melodicism, and that's
if only Control Denied had featured Andy LaRocque on lead guitar, that would have been the coup de grace.
Chuck's just such a beast, though, man. I mean,
totally.
I'm sorry, sadly, he's not
I know, man.
for so long, but
yep.
I mean, that's honestly, us even talking about death metal is just such a. It's just such a niche audience that cares about that. There's a very passionate fan base for that sort of thing, and I've never understood. This is probably a subject for another podcast. I've never understood the reverence for punk and hardcore that some people tend to have. I just don't get it. Like, why is it cool to suck?
Well, I was gonna say,
I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's like I've never understood that, and also I've never been. Maybe this is just me. And it probably is just me. Like, I've never not been looking for a good time, not to quote Poison. Like, I want to have fun. I want to be with people who are fun, people who are positive. I've never been a kind of dude who's been a dour, I'm angry and I don't fit in kind of thing.
Yeah, well, the rock and roll the bands that we grew up listening to, they weren't playing from above the shoulders. Their songs came from below the belt.
Yeah, exactly.
They were horny teenagers.
But it also
that
had
to go out and fucking.
But it also
shit.
had this swaggery badassness to it too.
Well, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was hormones and
it was like swagger. It was like the like a guy driving right into a ghost town with his pistol and he knows he's the baddest dude there. It was like that kind of attitude.
Right.
I never understood. No one understands me.
I mean, not to get Freudian about it, but it was the music of horny teenagers.
Yeah, I get it.
Now teenagers are just filled with anxiety in their bedroom on a webcam.
Every generation's always had anxiety. Teenagers.
No, they have, but we coped with it by going out and being horny teenagers.
Yeah, it's true. And then having
that was different,
unearned attitude that we thought we were badasses and stuff like that.
Go watch Porky's. Go watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Watch any
American Pie.
Watch any coming of age movie from the 70s through the early 2000s, right? But again, now it's just anxiety, and I'm probably not going to have a job. Why am I going to college? The news all the time, and it's just.
Well, people don't unplug enough. People are too plugged in. They need to unplug more. You know what I mean?
Kids were locked down during a pandemic for however long. I mean, there's a whole. I mean, how that's all going to manifest. It's hopefully AI makes every job irrelevant and we all just get universal basic income and we just spend the rest of our lives just pursuing our interests like they said it would happen in Star Trek.
That's the positive aspect of it. But very often it's probably going to end up like Furiosa, Fury Road thing. I
haven't seen Fury Road. Have you seen Fury Road?
I haven't, but we're going to end up fighting for what little resources in the post-apocalyptic wasteland.
I hope it's like Fist of the North Star, where Kenshiro just touches the enemy on their forehead, hitting a pressure point, and then he says, "You do not know that you are already dead," and then his head bubbles up and explodes. The enemy does. Maybe it's like that.
I have a feeling it's gonna be. I'm gonna have to eventually get a motorcycle and have a large trench coat and get a bunch of samurai swords and live in the wasteland and kill.
And then go drive to your local music store to buy a $4,000 PRS because you really love blues.
Exactly.
You're gonna be that guy.
No, I'll be the guy living on the road, just fighting.
Listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan,
fighting against the post-apocalyptic beasts, and and that kind of.
I mean, that does sound pretty rad, dude.
I think it sounds rad. I think it'd be really terrible way to.
Look, we could be marching through the desert, and then all of a sudden,
just loudness.
There's loudness just out there on stage.
This is great. Oh my
playing
God.
This Lonely Heart.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so see, it could be pretty rad.
That's actually a vision of the future I can get behind for sure.
I hope the apocalypse is at least interesting, right? During the pandemic, I was bummed out. This is not I want zombies, or I want an alien invasion,
nuclear war, where everything goes away,
nuclear winter, or just something. I just want it to be interesting before we're all turned to dust.
No, that's gonna happen long after we're long gone. But you know what?
I don't know about that.
Speaking of us being gone.
Oh, is it time for us to be gone?
That's going to do it for today.
That's it?
On this Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott, please make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also make sure to visit our website at www.xagisband.com.
That's www.exagisband.com. RegisBand.com.
There you'll find links to all of our social media. Please make sure to join and follow us on the socials, on Instagram and Twitter or X and Facebook and all that stuff. Please, we also have fan mail open, so if you have any questions or comments for us, please feel free to fire those off.
Yep, go check out our songs on YouTube and leave awesome comments.
Exactly. You actually can find the podcast on YouTube as well now. So it's
nice.
really cool.
And so everybody argue about the shit we said.
Subscribe on that as well. So
and subscribe on
just
YouTube.
Everywhere you can subscribe. Just subscribe.
Subscribe
just
to all of it.
Like subscribe, like a drunk cat.
Just
subscribe.
Just
to
go on a subscription bender.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'd appreciate that.
All right, and then we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.
Peace.